Hello, I'm Angel Feliz, and this is Data Science Learning Community, where I study outstanding user interfaces with Shiny, and we are in chapter 19, adding more interactivity. And in this chapter, we are going to practice a little bit how to use the handlers and insert some little pieces of JavaScript that help us to improve our Shiny apps. So to me was a really interesting chapter, and I hope for you too also. And they started explaining that they need to add more dependencies for these examples because we are going to use the progress bar, this progress, for example, something really similar, not exactly the same. Also a toss. So basically every feature that we are going to see has its own handler. Uh, that we are going to use and we are going to write basically. And yeah, of course, in your package, you place it in the int folder. And under that int folder, you have the handler. For example, he's separating that for this book. And the first thing that we're going to use is the progress bar we have here. And they pick the element from the tabular documentation. Okay, we have the progress, and it is basically the HTML that we need to use. We have the progress, that is the main class that grabs everything. But the element that we need to edit is where we place the ID. We have an ID, and that will help us to manage that interactively. You have the ID, the progress bar, and the style element that is a part to write CSS basically. And that is what determines how long would be the bar. Of course, we need to define some value by default, to complete the skeleton. But then we are going to manage to change that value using Shiny and then JavaScript only. We have the role that's, I think, part of the documentation. We have a maximum, a minimum value. And I think that this span is really the bar or the color. He doesn't explain really much about this span element, but it's part of the app. So basically he's pasting and he just, okay, we are going to focus on the star. Just change the star, everything is going to change. And he creates what you want to do is to change this. So we don't need to create a binding for that. You just need to send a message. So he just create a update function. With the default session, he used the namespace. That's just for working with models. So I think that's the first time I see, or I don't remember the last time we used this for creating an ID, but he's using it now. I know that it's important for working with models, but maybe it's not mandatory always. And we define the value, like, okay, this is the value that we are going to pass from 0 to 100. And we are going to send this JSON to JavaScript with this type. Basically, the type is the name that you are going to give to that message. And then we are going to use that name to use in the handler. Once we know this, that we have a list with the ID and the value that we're going to insert, we just need to define the handler. Okay, once the document is rendered, we are going to apply, when we receive this message type, update progress, like the same type that we define here, we are going to apply to this ID, this CSS. Like, okay, he's going to apply CSS, 2 points, and he's going to paste basically the message value. Remember that we need to use the point to get the value from JavaScript basically, because it's the same to the $sign in R to pick information from a list. When we have this handler, we just need to create a Shiny function. Like, okay, we have this no US Shiny input that is just a slider. We define the man, the minimum, and a default value. And then we define the tablet progress. That is the same estimate that we saw here. Just pasting that value, we play 12, but when we end rendering the Shiny app, we just will see the 12 because it's like as soon as the Shiny loads, it's going to update the value. And in the message, you just say an ID to, okay, I want to change which this tablet progress ID 1, and I want to apply the progress value here. Now this comes from the Shiny widgets, this no Shiny slider. Now we just, I just want to copy this up. Yeah, in this side. You see, it was in 12, but but really fast moved to 20. And so it's really working really well. So the magic is the handler.
I don't see it.
You don't see the Shiny app?
No.
Sorry. Let me just share again my screen. I will share my entire desktop. So let me run it again. And you catch it, like it was starting 12, but really fast just moved to 20.
Yeah, I see it now.
It seems like when Chinese starts, it just updates everything because like you're buying it because I just have event and have progress value. And as you are giving a default value, yeah, you have I don't know. You keep. I think it's mandatory to have that value. I think it's optional. You to. Let me start the. Yeah, I think you have to remove the value. It won't work. So that's the behavior. Even though if I place maybe 0 here, we will see 100%. I will place 100% by default. We will see the same. Yeah, it's starting 100% and then reduce to 20. It's like when Shiny starts, it just does that. If we don't want to give the user that perspective, you just place the same value. But that requires the server side to work. Sometimes we want to do it, but sometimes we don't. And he also explained how we can manage this part. What he does. Okay, let's create a function that waits that the Shiny is connected. And then we are going to pick the slider, the trigger will be the slider. We're going to pick the slider element. And then from the slider, he's going to use the API of no UI slider. And that's why I was trying to pick this documentation, was really good. This Shiny input that is no default has an interesting structure, like I was looking for the bindings. I find out that all the binding was in this minimum, just as jQuery, just one line of JavaScript, and then it imports everything. Yeah, a really long line of JavaScript, and the real code is here. Source JavaScript code, and then we can see the inputs, and then we will see the input UI slider. No, not slider. Yeah, this one.
Interesting.
In here, we see that they are importing jQuery, but they're importing this no UI styler. And you see here, they will use these API using the same method. Like, okay, they create the styler the same way that we did before, and then use the get value from the no UI slider. So this is not a method from jQuery, it's a method from a no UI slider. That's why when they are using the update. This even though it's the same method that use jQuery, is not a jQuery method. It's a no UI slider method. That's why they just place update. Update is a really general word, and it's really interesting that they use it in this way. And from this element, they also use the get element from the no UI slider. So basically, this part of updating in JavaScript relies on you to know these dependencies. That's why I'm sure that he really saw this in the source code that, oh, I know that it depends on this JavaScript method. And that's why he can use this input. Even though we don't know, I know that we can ask ChatGPT, hey, I know this is the binding of this element. How I can update this? And we'll be able to get into the API really fast. At least, even though we don't know all the details about this library, at least we'll be able to ask a correct questions to ChatGPT and whatever LLM. So this part really likes. I really love this part because it's simple to apply, even though we don't know. Yeah, know that the binding exists, even though we don't know all the details, is really important. And we know that what's the class that finds and how they do it. And they just, okay, this JavaScript code, we are going to pass as part of a function. And basically just to create a script, a short script that we are going to insert just in the beginning of our app. You just copy and paste and use the paste function. So we can use this script many times. So I want to have 2 slicers now, not just one. So I don't want to have this code twice. Or I don't want to write this code twice. So they just use this trick. So they can use for one trigger a different target. And that's why okay, I want the progress value, this first input, change the slider progress 1. And I want the second input, value 2, to impact and change the progress 2. And the advantage of this code is that you don't, or everything is part of the page, you know? You don't need to use anything about the server, and that's why the server part is empty. And of course, if that was just the scope of this application, that's the way that the author would do. Because it's just faster to have everything here and just work. And I was trying this on Windows and it worked. Like if I stop R, let me try to do it here. Even though the shiny is out, yeah, it also works. The slider keeps working because it doesn't rely nothing on the server part.
Yeah, it's directly using JavaScript.
Exactly. You're only using JavaScript. What I didn't know before is like if after even getting this pay in this in this way, like okay, this is not working, it's a clear message. I didn't thought that the buttons were still working.
Hmm.
And of course, there's no way that happens, you know, in the Chinese server side. And now he's also wants to insert some toast. A toast is like a message, a notification that you get in the dot, your computer. And of course, he checks the skeleton and he's like, okay, it have a main class, that is a div class, and it have tow and show and some other arguments. You have a header and a body. That's the main part. You also have a button for closing. But I think we are not, he's also explained that we are not going to use this button because it's going to hide based on sometime. Sometime that we are going to define. He's explaining a little bit of the implementation, that the JavaScript have some options that you need to pass in JSON, and have the animation by default is true, that is going to hide. Auto hide also, and you just need to apply the default. And it also has some methods that we can listen, and that's what we want to point. That's what the part that we want to explode in Chinese side. Like, okay, you have these events and you can listen and send some messages to Chinese. So you have the toast. He's going to use, HTML tools to make it a little bit easier to digest this Java, this HTML code. So you have the div for the header with all this same information. If you have an image, you add this. If not, you don't add it. Yeah, also you have a title, you add this part, you have subtitle. So every element is conditional now. Now you define the body, and you define the wrapper that is just the class toast. You see it has the class toast, but no toast show. So that's the part that we need to make dynamically. And all the rest of the information, and he just append this into just one HTML. Now we just need to create a show toast. That's a date function. Basically, it's no more than that. The function that we are going to pass the options. And the options, they define here. Like, okay, I'm going to pass force, at least with animation and delay. I wouldn't, in my side, if I were defining this function for options, I would just list the function, no keep it like an empty list that you need to know the names. Just as a parameter to the show function. But he preferred to keep it like in this way. And now that he defines a type tablet toast, now we need to define a handler, a custom handler. So when you receive toast, you are going to apply the options and then apply toast show. So this basically that he knows the API of the tabler. Or maybe by reading we will know, because he is explaining here. We might need to, if we are going to implement some JavaScript template, we need to understand, read the Java. This should be documented software. Yeah, basically we need to find out what's the method to change the status, the state of the HTML element. And now he also wants to list them, in this case, when is hidden. Okay, I know that the toast is hidden and I want to do something after that. So he's going to get the hidden. Once the toast is hidden, please send true, basically, to this ID. Okay, once you receive this message from this ID, sends true. And he's going to keep priority true because there isn't any logic to change that value from true to false. So basically, as the Chinese lazy, when he gets the same value over and over, by default, he does nothing. Like, okay, it's true. You haven't changed anything. Why should move anything? But when you place priority event, even though it's the same value, it's going to send the message. And that's what we want. So this is the true is not important. True is not important, just a value to send. The important is that it's going to send something to Shiny thanks to this pilot event. And what we're going to do with this event, we are going to show a notification. Like when you get toast, you are going to show this notification. And that's all the interactivity. We define toast for 3 seconds. It's going to keep and going to high. And then we are going to show a notification that the toast is out. And that's the app that we are going to run now. And now we have a button that is going to bring a toast. Like, okay, I have the launch. Launch is the button. Launch is the button. When you click launch, it will apply all this, It will remove notification if you haven't. And will also apply the toast command. So let's see. Now we see. And we are going to wait. And oh, I didn't saw the notification, but it was there. It show it here below. Yeah, you have the notification. And yeah, that's basically the functionality that can be useful. Like, okay, I'm getting this out. So basically, in this case, is how to take advantage of the events that you have in your system. Okay, I know that I have this event and I can do something afterwards. And if we check also the console, the Shiny console, every time have this observe print toast. It start with nothing the first time, but every time I click, it get a true. That's the point that the value is never changing. It's always true. And now they want to make the other list items buttons, basically. And they're explaining that in order to they're replicating tablet drop down. It has some image, defining the HTML, the menu. But after getting everything here, all the children, they will add to the tablet item element, they will add the action button here. Because in the binding, the way that the binding was is action button class. Like you have the action button class, it goes to the shiny element and trace everything as a button. And now he just defined send message because after clicking, he want to perform some action from the server side. And he just defined a handler for the drawdown. And what he's going to do with this update handler, I think just to create a button. So show tablet. So this tablet button. So once you click over the button, it's going to show the drawdown, basically. Let's run it. So in this way now, I need to make this bigger. Yeah, I have this drawdown, and when I click over the show notification, that item is a button. And that button will trigger the notification. Well, I also can open the dropdown from this button. Yeah, the item, you have item here with ID, and this item 1 is showing the notification. So every time you click over, you get that information in the observe, and then you can do something about it. So that's the advantage of getting, oh, if people is clicking. So basically, every time you want a new element in your Shiny app or get some interactivity, you don't need to define your own handlers every time. I want to do this. No, I will use the button. I just need to add the button, and I will get the same results without making, the binding myself. But I know how the binding works, and that's why I define the item with some ID. It's really interesting that if you don't define the ID, you don't know applying any button, and that's why you don't get any results. So it's optional. You don't have ID. Perfect. Shiny won't do anything because you have any reference to do anything. And that's the last part, that events. I didn't have the time to go over that, but I think it just created to create more complex example of what you can do with handlers, because you need to apply many more things, insert after. Basically, what he wants to do is rather than hide and show the tab, he's going to render again every time. To me, it sounds as a bad idea. Like, okay, if I have multi-page Shiny, I don't want to render that every time the people show a new page. I would just want to display it. And he explained it like, hey, the dependency. Sometimes you want to use a normal Shiny widget, but you sometimes don't get the dependency, so you need to use this function, HTML2 render touch, to get the dependency related. Yeah, basically that's the chapter.
I was thinking that the amount of jQuery code that this chapter uses and also the previous chapters, um, it's probably better just to learn JavaScript and use a framework there instead of using all of this in Shiny. Because making this template for Shiny, this is great, I think, for developers, but as the end user, this is a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it's a lot because you need to manage everything.
Yeah.
No, okay, well, you are missing this dependency. Now you need to figure out. Of course, it sounds like really good. Oh, you are missing these dependencies. It can take me 1 day to figure out that. Like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, and also
I,
figuring this out for another template of Bootstrap is also challenging. This
no,
chapter
yeah.
talks about the tabular, so we know that these are the missing dependencies that we need. For any new template, it's a challenge.
No, look, getting the tabular dependencies have been 4 words in progress.
Yeah,
Like, 1 day that you can just do it, and that's it. It's a lot of work, like,
right.
but what we get, my main is understand the handlers. Like, okay, I know this handler, and that's something that you can use in normal JavaScript. And basically, I would try to pick templates that people do for me.
Mm,
Okay, I know this. Let me see somebody in Shiny have done this before,
yeah.
and
The good
not
thing
try
is
to.
that this particular template is available in the package, the OS UI code, and so we can
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah, or maybe he's in another, because this is not a clean package, he don't
Mm,
using very good practice. I know that the example are working, but I wouldn't use this code for my apps.
mm,
It
right.
just it doesn't have any validation, even though we have a validation chapter next week. I know that he's not doing it
Mm,
because for making simple for us to read the code,
yeah,
you know.
that's right.
But I would try to use the template. Epsilon have made some, so we just go and pick one of them, and our shiny will look different.
Mhm.
And yeah, I wouldn't try to create my own template unless it's necessary. And we try to only say, "Oh, okay, this is the SAS code. I will just change the colors of this template." Because yeah, when you have to create the page yourself, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I think this chapter 21, may probably reduce this work because it is about automating the template creation. So maybe this is more useful.
I hope so. Let me see how, but this is, oh, let me just get this out. I don't get the bar. How long is this chapter? Doesn't show me.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know if this chapter is low because this is the bar for just the index. But that doesn't give me any sense of how long is this chapter. Um, n-
It's
Not
pretty
so
long.
long. Not so long.
Mm.
Not so long. So let's see how many tools they have to create template from the scratch. But the point is, in order to take advantage of this, you need to know Bootstrap. For
Yeah.
example, he's always applying no because Bootstrap have this method. And I was thinking that Bootstrap was just a CSS library. Well, no, it has JavaScript code
Mm.
that you need to take care about. But at least, even though it's a lot of work, if someday we need to do it, we know at least how to ask the question.
Right, right. Yeah, we do get the vocabulary. We can definitely understand which chapter to look at, which how to definitely, as we said, how to ask the question.
And then, if really necessary, then we need at least the first step to create a template because understand now the shiny part. Okay, I know that this is a binding. I know that it gets the method. I know that it's using jQuery from the that part is good. But the part that doesn't have this chart is about, okay, I know that using Bootstrap, but I don't know to use Bootstrap. I don't know the options. I don't know what are the events. So getting that knowledge about the framework that you're using behind the scenes is another part.
Yeah. Yeah,
But at least,
that's why I was saying that it is probably better to learn those things and just create a modern JavaScript framework instead of Shiny if we are creating something very different from the normal Shiny app. If you want to like create uh, very different looking Shiny app and we want to use an existing template, it's probably better to just use some existing JavaScript framework because I was reading that jQuery is not used anymore.
mm,
Was used before, but now people don't use it. People use the JavaScript and people mostly use frameworks like React and Angular for making web apps. So if we are going into this much detail, it probably is better to learn about those frameworks if we are going to learn about JavaScript and Bootstrap and everything.
that could be, but let me. Well, the problem is that you are a user and you
Mm,
maybe because we don't create general shiny apps. We
yeah.
create shiny apps to show some model,
Hmm.
and you get some from API, and like we don't create massive applications.
Hmm.
And maybe the advantage that you have R in the server. So you are taking some
Hmm.
advantage of having R in the server.
Right.
And of course, creating using all the details that Shiny handles for you and all the details that the templates do for you. And that's a part that you will need to do it manually in your site.
All right.
Like,
Right.
okay, writing React is not the same as this. What we could do is like this book use a lot of jQuery, and we could use vanilla JavaScript, like, because
Mm,
all those methods are available in vanilla JavaScript. They have some names, and those names are really easy to understand. Like, it's easier.
mm,
In my mind, like, it's easier to understand vanilla JavaScript than jQuery. It's like deploy in data.table. I love data.table. Like, that's my favorite package to
mhm.
manage data. But I know that if I need to teach art to somebody, I won't start with that table,
Right.
because it's like, oh, what are you writing? Oh, me, look, this point is at least sometime, and sometimes mean another day. No, no, it's hard. It's
Mhm.
once you get used to it, it's, oh, I love, you don't need to write too much, but it's really hard to explain. So if I would teach somebody, I would teach like the apply first. Okay, get sense of goodbye, summarize. Okay, now that what you learn there is this in the other table.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I think that's the same for jQuery. You know
Right.
those methods, and they are really short, and for somebody that is starting. But the point is that you are using Shiny, they are using jQuery. Even though they migrate to TypeScript, if you see the source code, they are still loading jQuery.
Yeah.
So there are no modern frameworks don't use jQuery because jQuery is too simple. It's like too simple, and you need to write too much. The point is that
Mhm.
Shiny already grow that code, so
Right.
they
Right.
keep using jQuery for that reason. But
Mm.
it's no, there is no problem to use jQuery in our sense. In our case, there is no problem. It's not so slow. It's just like modern frameworks for JavaScript have more options, so they need to write less code.
Yeah.
It's like
But I think,
jQuery is too simple.
yeah, to your point, I think one thing now, it's been many years since this book has been written. With WebR, I think things become a little bit different. So maybe you can use any front-end framework like React or Angular, and on the back end, you can still use R with WebR, as long as you are willing to run the code, R code in the browser, and you are okay with not sharing any secrets, then WebR is great option, I think. We can still do all our statistical calculations in R and use it as a backend instead of using the full server. And then we can create any app using any framework.
I don't know that part. Like, you would need to connect the WebSocket yourself.
Yeah, you need to connect because you don't really need to use WebSockets. Shiny uses WebSockets by default, but if you are using WebR, you can connect it with any other framework. It could be
Mm.
just a simple JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, without any particular framework, and it will work. So it will work just like sending the HTTP request. So you don't really need a WebSocket. But I think WebSocket may also be possible. I didn't think about it, but I think it behaves differently. I was researching a bit and I was looking into WebR and using something like React. I haven't experimented with it yet, but based on my reading so far, it seems it is possible. So I'll probably experiment with it when we get to that chapter on React
But the
R.
web app, for example, you have a model that is 100 megabyte size because you use some
Yeah, in that case, it wouldn't make sense. In that case, yeah, in that case, Shiny is better, or maybe using Plumber uh,
plumber would be the
with,
option in the
yeah.
main side. Like,
Mm,
okay, you have all your page with the model framework that you really need to learn first,
mm,
and then you connect by plumber. I mean, like, okay, this is just a API. I check, send the data and get the result out.
mm,
Maybe that could be. But what we don't have is ggplot2, for example, unless that you
mm.
send it by also. I don't imagine, like, you are creating a dashboard. uh, I will keep with Shiny. Okay.
Mhm. Right,
You
right,
just
yeah.
have, you just need some value. And that's the point. Like, you are creating a Shiny app. That's not a general app. You are creating plots, you are creating a lot of uh, R outputs. that needs to, sign, get the sign at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is 100% correct. It is a database app. It's not a simple web app.
No, exactly. Like you are creating some general app, but if you need 5 responses for R, 7 responses for R, because the outputs you generate are from R in serve.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right,
Chinese the solution, you need a WebSocket because you need to, you know, render everything together.
right, right. Yeah,
And that's the point. Like general apps, no, Chinese is not the option. But but you need every output from R. Chinese is incredible. And the same for Python is like that.
yeah,
Chinese for to show results that are really specific. Oh, I want to use a network. I want to show this one. Things that would be really hard to do it in other ways.
that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the chapter. And let me just stop